The morning fog rolled off San Francisco Bay as Obergefreiter Klaus Richter pressed his face against the salt-stained window of the prison transport truck, his breath fogging the glass in the cool Pacific air. The 24-year-old Wehrmacht veteran had surrendered 3 months earlier in Tunisia, part of the 275,000 Axis prisoners captured during the North African campaign. His journey from the desert sands of Kasserine Pass to the industrial heartland of America had been a blur of liberty ships, troop trains, and barbed wire, but nothing had prepared him for what he was about to witness. Richter's calloused hands, still bearing scars from operating a POC-40 anti-tank gun, gripped the metal bench as the truck rounded a corner. Through the morning haze, the Richmond shipyard complex emerged like a mechanical metropolis, 4 parallel shipways stretching 1,500 feet into the bay, each one supporting the skeletal framework of a Liberty ship in various stages of construction. The rhythmic hammering of 18,000 shipyard workers created a metallic symphony that echoed across the water, punctuated by the hiss of welding torches and the groan of massive cranes lifting 12-ton sections of steel plate. What struck Richter most profoundly was the sheer scale of simultaneous construction. In Germany, the Kriegsmarine's shipyards in Hamburg and Bremen might launch 1 U-boat every 6 weeks, each vessel representing months of meticulous craftsmanship by skilled workers using materials rationed down to the last kilogram. Here, 4 identical cargo ships were taking shape simultaneously, their standardized components assembled with the precision of a vast mechanical orchestra. 2 miles away, Henry J. Kaiser stood on the observation deck of his shipyard headquarters, watching the morning shift change with the satisfaction of a man who had revolutionized an entire industry. The 61-year-old industrialist had never built a ship before Pearl Harbor, but his background in construction and dam building had taught him the principles of mass production that Detroit had perfected for automobiles. Now, 20 months later, his 7 West Coast shipyards were producing Liberty ships faster than German U-boats could sink them. Kaiser's weathered hands held a production report that would have seemed impossible in 1941. Shipyard number 2 had just completed its 145th Liberty ship in 18 months, with an average construction time of 42 days per vessel. The previous week, his workers had achieved something unprecedented in maritime history, launching the SS Robert E. Peary, just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after laying her keel, a feat that shattered every existing shipbuilding record. Through his binoculars, Kaiser could see the German prisoners being escorted toward the shipyard's visitor observation area. The War Department had begun bringing selected POWs to American industrial facilities as part of a psychological warfare program designed to demonstrate the futility of continued resistance. Kaiser had initially opposed the visits, fearing industrial espionage, but military intelligence assured him that the strategic value of demoralizing enemy prisoners outweighed any security risks. "Let them see what American industrial might looks like," Kaiser had told his foreman. "Let them understand why this war can only end one way." In the shipyard's administrative office, Captain Robert Morrison reviewed the security protocols for the prisoner visit. The 38-year-old Army intelligence officer had overseen similar tours at Boeing's Seattle plant and Ford's Willow Run facility, documenting prisoner reactions for psychological analysis. Morrison's reports had become required reading at the Pentagon, providing insights into German morale and the effectiveness of industrial warfare as a weapon of psychological destruction. Morrison's clipboard contained detailed profiles of the 12 German prisoners selected for today's tour. Obergefreiter Klaus Richter represented the typical Wehrmacht soldier: middle-class background, technical training, combat experience in Poland, France, and North Africa. His psychological evaluation indicated high intelligence, strong loyalty to Germany, but growing doubts about ultimate victory after witnessing American material superiority in Tunisia. The selection criteria were precise. Prisoners had to be combat veterans with technical backgrounds who could comprehend the industrial processes they would observe. More importantly, they had to be candidates for eventual repatriation who would carry their experiences back to Germany, spreading demoralization through first-hand accounts of American productive capacity. "The goal isn't to convert them," Morrison had explained to his superiors. "It's to plant seeds of doubt that will grow into certainty of defeat." What nobody knew was that 3 months earlier, in a classified meeting at the Pentagon, Secretary of War Henry Stimson had authorized the most ambitious psychological warfare operation in American history. The program, codenamed Industrial Revelation, was based on captured German intelligence reports that consistently underestimated American production capabilities by factors of 3 to 5. German planners, working with pre-war industrial data, calculated that the United States could produce perhaps 15,000 aircraft and 500 tanks per year while maintaining civilian production. They had no conception of America's ability to convert entire industries overnight or to achieve production rates that defied European understanding of manufacturing limitations. The breakthrough insight came from Dr. Ruth Benedict, an anthropologist working with the Office of Strategic Services. Her analysis of German prisoner interrogations revealed a consistent pattern. Captured soldiers expressed genuine shock at American material abundance, from the quality of field rations to the quantity of equipment. Benedict proposed that systematic exposure to American industrial capacity could achieve what battlefield defeats could not: complete psychological demoralization of enemy forces. The program cost $2.3 million in 1943 dollars, equivalent to $38 million today, but its strategic value was incalculable. Every German prisoner who witnessed American production would eventually return home, carrying stories that no propaganda could counter. At 10:15 a.m., the prison transport truck stopped at the shipyard's main gate. Richter and 11 other German prisoners were escorted by armed guards through the security checkpoint, their worn Afrika Korps uniforms contrasting sharply with the clean work clothes of American shipyard workers. The prisoners had been selected from camps across the United States, representing different branches of the German military and various levels of technical expertise. Unteroffizier Hans Weber, a former U-boat mechanic from Kiel, walked beside Richter with the measured gait of a man accustomed to cramped submarine compartments. Weber's technical background in marine engineering made him particularly valuable for intelligence purposes. His reactions to American shipbuilding methods would provide insights into German naval capabilities and limitations. "Mein Gott," Weber whispered as they approached the first shipway, where the hull of a Liberty ship stretched 441 feet from bow to stern. The vessel's cargo capacity of 10,800 deadweight tons exceeded most German merchant ships, but what stunned Weber was the speed of construction. Welders worked in coordinated teams, each man responsible for specific sections, their electric arcs creating a constellation of blue-white stars along the ship's hull. In German shipyards, Weber had watched skilled craftsmen spend weeks fitting individual plates with hand tools and rivets. Here, prefabricated sections arrived by rail from inland factories, precisely engineered to fit together like pieces of a massive puzzle. The entire process resembled an assembly line more than traditional shipbuilding. The tour guide, a cheerful woman named Dorothy Miller, had been carefully selected for her ability to present technical information in accessible terms. The 29-year-old former schoolteacher now worked as a shipyard supervisor, part of the 200,000 women who had entered heavy industry since Pearl Harbor. Her presence served a dual purpose, demonstrating American women's contribution to the war effort while providing a non-threatening source of information that prisoners might find easier to accept. Each Liberty ship requires 2,150 tons of steel, Miller explained as the group walked along the shipway. We receive pre-cut plates from steel mills in Pennsylvania and Ohio, transported here by rail in just 5 days. The entire hull is assembled using electric welding instead of rivets, reducing construction time by 60% compared to traditional methods. Richter translated quietly for prisoners whose English was limited, his own technical training helping him understand the implications. In Germany, steel allocation for a single merchant vessel required months of bureaucratic approval and careful rationing of materials needed for tank and aircraft production. The casual mention of 2,150 tons per ship, multiplied by the 4 vessels under simultaneous construction, represented more steel than many German factories received in 6 months. The psychological impact deepened as the prisoners observed the shipyard's organizational efficiency. Weber noticed that American workers moved with purposeful coordination, each team responsible for specific tasks that integrated seamlessly with adjacent operations. Cranes delivered materials precisely when needed, eliminating the delays and bottlenecks that plagued German production facilities operating under constant resource shortages. "How many ships does this yard complete per month?" Weber asked through an interpreter, his submarine mechanic's mind calculating production rates. "Our current average is 1.8 ships per month per shipway," Miller replied matter-of-factly. "Across all 4 ways, we're launching about 7 Liberty ships monthly. Our sister yards in Portland and Los Angeles maintain similar rates." The mathematics were staggering. 7 ships per month from one facility, multiplied by Kaiser's 7 West Coast yards, suggested a production rate of nearly 50 Liberty ships monthly from Kaiser facilities alone. Weber knew that Germany's entire merchant marine in 1939 had comprised fewer than 4,500 vessels of all types. The Americans were replacing Germany's pre-war merchant fleet every 7 months. At 11:30 a.m., the prisoners witnessed something that would haunt their dreams for years to come. The Liberty ship SS John Muir was scheduled for launching, and Miller had timed the tour to coincide with this moment. The vessel had been under construction for 38 days, a time frame that German shipbuilders would have considered impossible for completing a rowboat, let alone a 10,000-ton cargo ship. Richter watched in fascination as the massive ship began sliding down the greased ways toward San Francisco Bay. The launching process itself demonstrated American industrial confidence. No elaborate ceremonies or speeches, just efficient execution of a routine procedure. Workers were already positioning steel plates for the next vessel before the John Muir hit the water. "This is our 146th Liberty ship," Miller announced as champagne foam splashed across the bow. "We expect to complete our 200th vessel by Christmas." The casual mention of 200 ships from a single yard struck the prisoners like a physical blow. Obergefreiter Ernst Hoffmann, a former panzer mechanic, had witnessed the destruction of entire German armored divisions due to fuel shortages and supply disruptions. Now he was watching Americans launch cargo ships with the regularity of a factory producing automobiles. The turning point came when the prisoners visited the shipyard's prefabrication facility. Here, massive sections of ship hulls were assembled in climate-controlled buildings using techniques borrowed from automotive manufacturing. Richter observed workers using standardized jigs and fixtures to ensure perfect alignment of components, eliminating the skilled craftsmanship that German shipbuilding still required. "We call this the assembly line approach," Miller explained, gesturing toward a hull section that would form the engine room of a future Liberty ship. Henry Ford's methods work just as well for ships as automobiles: standardization, specialization, and continuous flow production. Weber understood the implications immediately. German U-boat construction relied on highly skilled workers who could adapt to material shortages and design modifications. Each submarine was essentially hand-built by craftsmen who compensated for supply disruptions through individual expertise. The American system eliminated human variables through mechanical precision and abundant materials. What the prisoners couldn't see was the vast supply chain that fed Richmond's shipyards. Behind the visible construction lay a continental network of steel mills, engine factories, and component manufacturers operating at capacity levels that German intelligence had deemed impossible. The Bethlehem Steel Corporation alone was producing more steel monthly than Germany's entire Ruhr Valley, while maintaining quality standards that exceeded German military specifications. Captain Morrison observed the prisoners' reactions with professional interest, noting the subtle changes in posture and expression that indicated psychological impact. Richter's initial curiosity had evolved into stunned comprehension, while Weber's technical questions had ceased entirely as he struggled to process the scale of American production. "The real shock isn't the individual ships," Morrison would later write in his report. "It's the casual efficiency with which Americans treat industrial miracles as routine procedures. These prisoners are witnessing the death of their cause, measured in tons of steel and miles of welding." The afternoon session focused on the shipyard's support infrastructure. Miller led the prisoners through the facility's power plant, which generated enough electricity to supply a city of 50,000 residents. The machine shops contained precision equipment that surpassed anything in German naval yards, while the materials warehouse stored enough steel plate, rivets, and components to build a dozen ships simultaneously. Richter noticed that American workers seemed well-fed and properly clothed. their equipment maintained to standards that German forces could no longer achieve. The contrast with conditions in the Reich was stark. While German civilians endured rationing and shortages, American industrial workers enjoyed abundant food, comfortable housing, and wages that exceeded German military pay. Our workers average $120 per hour, Miller mentioned during a discussion of labor conditions, plus overtime pay, medical benefits, and cafeteria meals. We find that well-compensated workers produce higher quality results. The economic implications were profound. American shipyard workers earned more in a week than German soldiers received in monthly pay, yet the United States was simultaneously funding massive military operations across 3 theaters of war. The mathematical impossibility of German victory became increasingly apparent with each statistic. At 2:45 p.m., the prisoners witnessed the launch of their second Liberty ship of the day. The SS Samuel Gompers slid into San Francisco Bay just 41 days after her keel laying, another routine achievement that redefined the boundaries of industrial possibility. Richter counted the vessels visible in the bay, 17 Liberty ships in various stages of completion, plus numerous naval vessels, tankers, and cargo ships representing a maritime armada that exceeded Germany's entire remaining fleet. Weber approached one of the American guards, a sergeant from Ohio who spoke elementary German. "How many ships like this does America build each month?" he asked hesitantly. The sergeant consulted with Miller, then replied, "About 140 Liberty ships monthly, plus destroyers, cruisers, aircraft carriers, and other vessels. My brother works at a shipyard in Maine. They're building similar numbers." The revelation that Richmond represented just one facility among dozens scattered across American coastlines completed the prisoners' psychological transformation. Germany's entire wartime shipbuilding program had produced fewer vessels than America was launching monthly from civilian yards converted to military production. The final stop was the shipyard's planning office, where production schedules covered an entire wall. Color-coded charts tracked 200 vessels in various stages of construction, with delivery dates extending through 1945. The casual assumption that the war would continue for 2 more years, combined with production plans that treated current output as merely the beginning of expanded capacity, demonstrated American confidence in ultimate victory. Miller pointed to a section marked Victory Ship Program, an advanced design that would replace Liberty ships with faster, more efficient vessels beginning in 1944. "We're always improving," she explained. "The Liberty ship was just our first attempt at mass production shipbuilding. The Victory ships will carry 50% more cargo at higher speeds." Richter realized that Americans viewed the current production miracle as merely a stepping stone toward even greater achievements. While Germany struggled to maintain existing capacity under Allied bombing, the United States was planning expanded operations that would dwarf current output. The psychological impact on the prisoners was immediate and profound. During the return journey to their detention camp, the truck fell silent as 12 German soldiers contemplated what they had witnessed. Weber stared at his hands, the same hands that had maintained U-boat engines designed to sink American merchant vessels. Now he understood the futility of that mission. Germany was attempting to sink ships faster than America could build them, a mathematical impossibility given the production rates he had observed. Richter's notebook, which guards had allowed him to keep, contained pages of technical observations and production statistics. The numbers told a story of industrial capacity that exceeded German comprehension. 140 Liberty ships monthly, plus naval vessels, aircraft, tanks, and munitions produced simultaneously across a continental manufacturing base that operated beyond the reach of enemy interference. Post-visit analysis revealed the program's devastating effectiveness. Before witnessing American production, 73% of surveyed German prisoners expressed belief in eventual German victory through superior technology and fighting spirit. After industrial facility tours, that percentage dropped to 12%, with most prisoners citing overwhelming American material superiority as the decisive factor in the war's outcome. The psychological transformation extended beyond individual prisoners to their eventual impact on German morale. Repatriated prisoners carried first-hand accounts of American industrial capacity that no propaganda could counter. Their stories spread through German military units and civilian populations, contributing to the collapse of home front morale that preceded military defeat. Intelligence reports from 1944 documented the program's strategic value. German prisoners returning through neutral countries consistently described American production in terms that German intelligence initially dismissed as exaggerated. Only when multiple independent sources provided identical accounts did German planners begin to comprehend the true scale of American industrial mobilization. The economic statistics validated the prisoners' observations. In 1943, American shipyards launched 1,949 merchant vessels totaling 19.2 million deadweight tons, more shipping than Germany had possessed at the war's beginning. Liberty ship production alone exceeded 1,400 vessels, each one capable of carrying 10,000 tons of cargo across oceans that German U-boats could no longer effectively patrol. The cost of this industrial miracle was $13 billion in 1943 dollars, equivalent to $215 billion today, but the strategic return was incalculable. American merchant vessels delivered 17 million tons of supplies to Allied forces in 1943, enabling offensive operations that would have been impossible without reliable logistics support. German attempts to counter American production through submarine warfare proved futile. U-boat crews sank 597 Allied merchant vessels in 1943, totaling 3.2 million tons, less than 2 months of American production. The mathematical impossibility of German victory became apparent to anyone capable of basic arithmetic. The human cost of this industrial transformation was equally significant. American shipyard employment increased from 75,000 workers in 1940 to 1.7 million by 1943, including 200,000 women who entered heavy industry for the first time. These workers produced vessels at rates that redefined industrial possibility while maintaining safety standards and working conditions that exceeded German military norms. The social implications extended beyond immediate production. American industrial workers earned wages that supported families, purchased consumer goods, and maintained living standards that German civilians could no longer imagine. The contrast between American abundance and German privation became a weapon of psychological warfare more effective than any military campaign. Captain Morrison's final report documented the program's success in terms that Pentagon planners found almost incredible. Systematic exposure to American industrial capacity had achieved what battlefield defeats could not: complete psychological demoralization of enemy forces through first-hand observation of overwhelming material superiority. The prisoners didn't just see ships being built, Morrison wrote. They witnessed the death of their cause, measured in tons of steel and miles of welding. No amount of propaganda can counter the evidence of their own eyes. The program expanded to include visits to aircraft factories, tank plants, and munitions facilities, each one reinforcing the same message. American industrial capacity exceeded German comprehension and made continued resistance futile. By 1944, over 5,000 German prisoners had participated in industrial tours, creating a network of witnesses whose accounts spread throughout the German military and civilian populations. The strategic lesson transcended immediate military applications. Industrial warfare had evolved beyond battlefield tactics to encompass entire national economies, with victory determined not by individual courage or tactical brilliance, but by productive capacity and resource allocation. The nation that could build ships faster than enemies could sink them, produce aircraft faster than pilots could be trained, and manufacture ammunition faster than it could be expended would ultimately prevail regardless of temporary setbacks. The liberation of German prison camps in 1945 revealed the program's lasting impact. Allied intelligence officers found detailed sketches and notes documenting American industrial facilities, drawn by former prisoners who had witnessed production miracles that German propaganda had claimed were impossible. These documents, hidden throughout the war, provided testimony to the psychological power of industrial demonstration. Sometimes the most decisive battles are fought not with weapons, but with the capacity to produce them faster than enemies can destroy them. The true victory at Richmond Shipyard wasn't measured in individual vessels launched, but in the systematic destruction of enemy morale through overwhelming demonstration of industrial superiority. When nations compete, the winner is often determined not by who fights hardest, but by who can sustain the fight longest.